Welcome to Storytime with Angel. This is our third episode. We've kind of lost the sun here, sorry about that, so it's a little dark in here. The sunroom will probably be closing up soon anyway as we get towards the end of fall and it gets a little bit chilly out here. So we'll be in the dark dungeon of my study a little bit later in the year anyway. Today we have the privilege of an excerpt of Lexi Anders. This is from her story Striker, which is the second of the Velespian Pact books. The first one was Alpha Trine. And Alpha Trine is about a young man named Zeus who was raised by the Marsani. And those are a race of kind of saurian, reptilian aliens. They're very fierce, very family-oriented folks. And he was raised by the royal family. The first story is about him meeting his life mate, who is a dual being symbiotic person. So there are two people sharing this same mind. And what we have in Striker is what happens after they've already met. And Dargon and Alpha are actually pregnant with Zeus's child. So that's kind of where we are in the second book. Let's go ahead and read you the blurb for Striker. This is the Velespian Pact Book 2. This is from Less Than 3 Press by Lexi Ander. The peaceful respite for which Zeus and his intended Dargon and Alpha had been hoping for is shattered when Zeus is unexpectedly drawn to the waters of Poseidon and told that the safety they've been promised is a trap. But the Fal'Amaric aren't the only important cargo on the Othra 7, and countless others are depending on the success of their mission. If Zeus hopes to break the silent siege on Velespia and protect those most precious to him, he will need not just powerful allies, but the fortitude to survive overwhelming odds. So, our excerpt is from chapter 13, from Striker. We will await in the corridor. Nestor ushered everyone out of the cabin. Zeus had not expected to be overwhelmed by a host of emotions when Alpha went into labor. The sound of Alpha's agony made his heart ache. He thought he was mentally prepared, only to discover he had fooled himself. Sitting next to Dargon, he fussed with the bedding. Zeus knew he delayed the inevitable. The thought of leaving Dargon and Alpha to go through labor alone crushed him. Once he said his farewells, he would report to the bridge. He had an obligation to Dargon's crew and the Fal'Amaric to fulfill his duties. "We are not alone." "I don't know if I can." "You must." Dargon's subdued whisper only emphasized the importance of the situation. "If I leave this room and something were to happen to you, or Alpha, if I weren't here to... Zeus smoothed the material of the bedding across Dargon's chest, stopping when Dargon stilled his fingers with a gentle touch. "Look at me." Dargon's tone was hard and demanding, the voice of the captain, not his lover. Zeus's gaze traveled from Dargon's chest to the base of his throat where Alpha sat in a ball. His pale white body had already started to change as he entered the final stage of pregnancy. What were the complications of an Alpha or Zeta giving birth? Was the ship equipped with all they needed to see to Alpha and the kit's health? What if something went wrong on the bridge? What if he made a mistake that would... "I said, look at me!" His lover's snapped demand caused Zeus to start and glance up. Dargon's brilliant green eyes held him in place. "I understand. If I were in your place, I would be struggling as well. But we all know what you need to do. We will be here waiting for you when you come back." Zeus swallowed thickly as he leaned forward and pressed his forehead to Dargon's. His hiss clicked tangled up on his tongue. Dargon grasped the back of his neck and pulled him in for a kiss that spoke of vows and promises, of a tenderness of heart. The touch of their lips shored up Zeus's will, giving him strength where mere words had not. If he could not be here to safeguard his family, then he would protect them in other ways, by ensuring the safety of the ship they traveled upon as they gave birth. When they parted, pride glinted in Dargon's eyes. Zeus moved down and gently cupped Alpha, who felt incredibly warm to the touch. "My love," Alpha whispered in his mind. He lightly pressed his lips to Alpha's skin, sending all his reassurance and love along the link between them. "I will return soon," his voice cracked, but he gave him a smile. Rising from the sleeping platform, he lifted his uniform jacket from the foot of the bed and slid his arms into the sleeves. With each buckle, every button, Zeus worked to clear his mind and pack away all of his worries. Dargon and Alpha were not the only ones who counted on him. Suited up, he turned back to Dargon. He could not leave without one more kiss. Leaning down and placing a hand on either side of Dargon's head, he took his lover's mouth gently. He kept his eyes open, watching as Dargon's lids fluttered closed as Zeus tasted him. He stored away the vision of long golden lashes brushing Dargon's cheeks, burning into his memory Dargon's expression of complete adoration. When he kissed Alpha again, he felt his bondmate's feathery touch in his mind. "We will be waiting for you." Zeus straightened, breathing past the tightness in his chest. With each backward step toward the door, his gaze took them in, wanting to remember it all down to the most minute detail. Every dip and curve, the precise color of Dargon's eyes, the shape of his lips, the exact pink of Alpha's veins. Every piece, every feature he filed away. He wasn't naive. They were more than likely walking into an ambush. He anticipated the hours ahead would turn violent and bloody. What he memorized now would help to remind him of the reasons he needed to be triumphant during the probable upcoming battle. Without another word, he spun on his heel and exited the cabin. Maddox joined Myra in the corridor, and they slipped past him into the room. Maddox squeezed his arm reassuringly as he walked by. "Someone else has come." Zeus followed Maddox's gaze to see Amlin standing with the milling Manticore. Something in him eased at the sight of the assassin. Upon his nod of thanks, she wove her way through the guards to enter the cabin. She did not glance back. After the door closed behind the group, he turned to his brother. "How soon before we drop out of hyperspace?" "Half an hour. There have been a few changes to our plans." They strode down the corridor toward the lift. Zeus noticed 8 of the Manticore stayed positioned in front of Dargon's quarters. He hadn't asked for additional security for his family. That they had arranged it for it anyway filled him with gratitude. Their presence near his family would enable him to concentrate far better when he was away from them. Zeus and Mestor, along with their guards, stepped into the lift. "Only one of the Fetini will stay with us. Europa has decided to travel with your crew aboard the Othra 7. Warlord Somlan petitioned me to allow half the Manticore and a team of the Chimera to accompany you as well. I have already given my approval." Why? You and Aziz need the Manticore more than I." Zeus couldn't understand why Mestor would agree to such a request. Aziz was more important than he. His brothers were the ones who would face conflict. Zeus looked up into Mestor's dark face, his black scales glistening as if polished. Sunrise yellow eyes gazed back at him, the determination in them clear to see. "We have the Gorgon, if we encounter a problem. You designed our energy countermeasures before you left Atlantasia to be the master mechanic. With the entire fleet retrofitted, we will not be stopped by electromagnetic weapons. The authorization codes for the docking bays are in rotation now instead of fixed as they were before the hijacking, strengthening security there. Mimi will arrive maybe half an hour after we do with the rest of the fleet in tow, and we have the Fetini to disable the jamming devices and one to jump for reinforcements. You, on the other hand, will be planet-side. So far, we have assumed the planet's shields are not compromised. If this is not the case, you could be flying into a more dangerous battle than we will be facing." Mestor paused as the lift slowed, signaling the approach to their stop. The doors slid open, revealing almost 100 Manticore already in the cargo bay, with more still filing onto the ship through the lowered bay door. Warlord Somlan directed those who carried additional supplies aboard. On close inspection, the connecting bay was packed with Manticore as well. "You must remember your mates carry the heirs to Atlantisia's throne." His gaze snapped to Mestor in alarm. "What?" Mestor smiled softly. "Aziz signed the documents before I came over. If something were to happen to him and me, your younglings would be the heirs to the throne." Zeus was speechless and slightly overwhelmed by this unexpected turn of events. Would his young even be accepted by the Marsani? Mestor seemed to read his thoughts. "You are the son of Emperor Valdor Vondorian. Your children are his grandchildren, and heirs should Aziz and I neglect to provide any." His grin widened, showing his needle-sharp teeth. Not for lack of trying, of course. He followed Mestor to the bay's ramp. It seemed as if the loading of supplies was just finishing up. Mestor turned, and for a moment they simply stared at each other. They had everything to say, and nothing at all. Mester leaned down and touched his forehead to Zeus's. "Strength to your sword arm," Zeus whispered. "May the salt of tears be that of your enemies," Mester replied, concluding the end of the warrior's prayer in the old tongue. He watched Mester stride away until the closing of the ramp door blocked his brother from view. All right, and there we have our mates in labor and Zeus going off into a situation that he's not sure how bad it's going to be. This is a really exciting sounding story. It sounds like a really great follow-up to Alpha Trine. And personally, I can't wait to read it. I haven't read the whole thing yet, and I'm just dying to now that I've read the excerpt. We have a couple more excerpts that are going to be read this week, kind of on a run-up to Gay Romlit. We have some extras that I want to fit in. On Thursday, we're going to have one from Leslie Lee Saunders, and on Saturday, I'm going to try and read one of my own, which should be interesting. So this was Striker, the second of the Lesbian Pact books. We're going to have the bylinks and the cover. Of course, it's a really gorgeous cover. I love the kind of minimalist covers that Less Than Three Press did for this series. A little farther down in the blog. And obviously, if you have any questions or comments, leave those too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.